All right, welcome to the book club. Each week I read a new book, summarize it, and share it with you. This week's selection, I chose New Hope for Concussions, Traumatic Brain Injuries, and Post-Traumatic Stress Syndrome, written by Dr. Lawrence Komer and co-authored by his wife, Joan Komer. New Hope is an easy-to-read introduction to the world of concussions, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, along with a correlation of hormonal imbalances caused by these events. The beginning of the book uses an analogy of life-changing moments in time, such as past presidents' assassinations, 9/11, the Berlin Wall, and more currently, coronavirus. This is a perfect example of a crack in time, something that we can never be undone and will change our lives forever. Comparatively, a concussion, other brain injuries, for example, have their own memory, and even a small one, a brain injury, is also a crack in time. So firstly, there's a brief explanation of what consists of a certain brain injuries: concussion, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and post-concussion syndrome. What is a concussion? In short, when your head accelerates and then suddenly stops, your brain hits the inside of the skull. A common misconception is that in order to experience a concussion, you must lose consciousness. This belief is incorrect. How can someone experience a concussion? Raven might experience a concussion if I hit him on the head right now for continuously barking. In sport, a slip and fall, falling off a bicycle, even at a standstill, falling off a bicycle, vehicle accident, boxing is one of the most dangerous sports for concussion-related injuries. But did you know that cheerleading is the #1 sport known for concussions? What's unfortunate, but very common, repeated and even mild occurring blows to the head have been proven to compound over time, causing major brain changes in chemistry. What is a traumatic brain injury? Moving forward, TBI. This is classified as damage to the brain caused suddenly by an external force, such as a bullet penetrating the head, a slip and fall, sport, major impact, closed head injury. Ultimately, the result is brain bruising, bleeding within the brain, tears or lacerations, and or nerve damage. These can be classed as mild, moderate, or severe. 75% of concussions are considered mild. A traumatic brain injury may show no visible injury, so this is why MRI, X-ray, CT scans may be inconclusive because they can't detect tissue damage, but more so structural. These tests are great for acute life-threatening detection, but if there's no acute damage, then the patient will be likely sent home and told to rest, and that's it. Another factor to consider when a head injury occurs is what's known as a coup contra coup injury. This is when the brain injury is actually at the point of impact and then it rebounds and hits the opposite side of the skull. This is a long list of physical and emotional signs and symptoms associated with post-concussions. There is a list. I'll refer to Google in the meantime for you to find that yourself, or by the book you can see the long list of symptoms because there are a lot. Question: did you know patients who previously hospitalized for traumatic brain injury are between 35 and 80% likely to abuse substances, alcohol being the greater? Sadly, traumatic brain injuries are linked to homelessness, panic attacks, depression, learning disabilities, domestic violence, suicide, or even incarceration. Check this out. According to American statistics, 1 million U.S. troops who experienced a TBI are in jail. It is suggested that these people who are in jail are because of their poor decisions caused by the side effects of a TBI. And of those million, 40 commit suicide each day. A Toronto statistic stated that 42% of men and 58% of women who are homeless had experienced a TBI before becoming homeless. What is PTSD? It is defined as an anxiety disorder that can occur after a person has been through a traumatic event. Examples include crashes, sexual or physical assault, natural disasters, crime or combat in war, or even a dog bite. I definitely experienced that with Raven when he was attacked. PTSD basically is when the feeling of life has been threatened or others are threatening or threatened. This is a feeling of no control over the situation. Signs and symptoms include anxiety, irritability, outbreaks of anger, depression, nightmares, avoidance, physical responses such as overstimulation of endocrine hormones. According to Dr. Dulene Baker, a psychiatrist at University of California, those who had TBI were double the risk of PTSD. Dr. Komer explains to the reader that anyone who has a friend or family member with PTSD may overreact to a certain situation where otherwise would be normal. He emphasizes that PTSD is a legitimate illness, just as appendicitis diagnosis, and should be treated with humility and seriousness. What is post-concussion syndrome? Just like I mentioned earlier, a crack in time. Basically, everyone to a degree who has experienced any traumatic brain injury will have post-concussion syndrome. Dr. Komer explains that according to his findings, a large number of patients will experience hormonal abnormalities following a TBI. Dr. Komer then begins to explain in simple explanation the connection between pituitary gland and the hypothalamus being responsible for the production and function of varying brain hormones. And when there is damage to the brain, there is ultimately damage to those glands, resulting in hormonal imbalance. Dr. Komer notes that 50% of all patients experience abnormal pituitary function and hormonal abnormalities just 3 months after sustaining a brain injury. Even after 1 year, 36% of patients still continue to have poor hormone levels. So, what's truly happening inside the brain following a TBI? 2 things. 1, abnormal hormones and brain chemistry, and 2, systemic brain inflammation. How did Dr. Komer begin to suspect hormones as a contributing factor to post-concussion syndrome? Initially, he was beginning to correlate the same symptoms of men and women who were experiencing low hormones due to age. When people got older, many of the symptoms associated with decline in hormones are almost identical to those who suffer PTSD and post-concussion syndrome. So the research began. Here's a crash course on hormones and the endocrine system, kind of like a one-on-one, just so you understand. 1, hypothalamus controls release of hormones produced by the pituitary gland. Number 2, both hypothalamus and pituitary are located in the brain. Number 3, pituitary is known as the master gland because it produces hormones to signal other glands to produce other specific hormones. Number 4, glands and hormones such as thyroid, adrenals, ovaries, testicles. Number 5, thyroid located in the front of the neck produces thyroid hormones, T3, T4, reverse T3. Adrenal glands, situated on top of the kidneys, produce endocrine hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, androgens. Number 7, ovaries are the female sex glands. They're a reservoir of eggs, production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, a little bit. Number 8, testicles in men, male sex hormones, production of sperm. Number 9, growth hormone made by the pituitary should be renamed, ultimately, the repair hormone because it's so powerful at stimulating growth and repair. Understanding that anytime there's an imbalance of any hormone, there will be feedback mechanism resulting in either too much production of another hormone or too little. With this understanding, a brain injury is almost guaranteed that there will be abnormal hormonal hormones imbalances. Continuing on the same theme with hormones, Dr. Komer used an analogy of a volcano and its massive eruptions being the same as women each month during their menstrual period. Estrogen levels can begin 27 picograms per milliliter, increasing all the way up to 436 picograms per milliliter at ovulation, and then falling back down over the next 2 weeks. That's a 1,600% increase of hormones and fluctuation. It should be no surprise that this would inevitably cause incredible changes in feelings of mood for all women. So men, be more understanding. The reason why this is shared is because over time, women begin to phase into premenopause and hormones begin to change. Men also experience the same hormonal shift, and this is called andropause. The signs and symptoms associated with a decline in hormones naturally are also very similar to the signs and symptoms associated with long-term effects from brain trauma. This is why hormones are addressed. Next in the book, the question arises, should my children play sports, knowing full well concussions are a risk? In short, yes. Sports build character, teaches them lifelong lessons, skills, personal skills, and much, much more. Are there preventative measures parents can take? Yes, there are. Ensure proper protection is used. Recognize a suspected head injury. Explain properly to teammates and staff that there is an existing injury. Concussion protocol is in place. Ensure proper physicians are qualified to treat and detect these concussions. Children's, adults require healthy foods to ensure good health and ability to repair. If there is a concussion, take proper time to recover. Post-traumatic stress disorder, Dr. Komer mentions a large percentage of his patients on a daily basis are first-hand responders. He mentions they are all high-stress workers. Many have sustained concussions from PTSD job-related incidents, and as a result, many of them have hormonal imbalances, both men and women. Midway through the book, Dr. Komer and his wife Joan share their personal story, the loss of their daughter, which ultimately became the major pivotal catalyst to the vision of the Komer Brain Institute. Without going into too much detail, their daughter was an all-around fan favorite. She was educated, bright, musically talented, became very successful. During her teens, she was in an automobile accident and sustained a concussion. Maybe not really even knowing that she sustained a major brain concussion. During her teens, she was, accidents, there we go. So fast forward into her early adult years, she spiraled downward into depression, substance abuse, poor health, and ultimately resulted in her death. It was in 2015 where Dr. Komer attended a conference on hormones and traumatic brain injuries. This presentation was discussing the damage U.S. troops were faced with coming back from war, and this is where the light turned on for Dr. Komer, and connecting the brain injury with his daughter incurred years prior in the car accident. The decline of hormones was the cause of brain trauma. The trauma was the cause of brain reduction of brain hormones, which led to the years of decline of neurochemistry. Literally reading that, I started crying because it was such a powerful story. Fueling the brain, not the fire. As mentioned earlier, the two top factors when treating a person who sustained a brain injury is A, reduction of inflammation, and B, address their hormones. Dr. Komer has a natural approach when it comes to reducing inflammation in the brain, in addition to improving brain health through therapeutic doses of micronutrients. Vitamin D, fish oils, curcumin, taurine, magnesium, melatonin, B6, B12, folate, vitamin C, CoQ10, ginkgo biloba, acetyl L-carnitine, and glutathione. Raven, stop, please. So those are all vitamins that you should be taking for brain health. When adopting mindset, it is always advantageous to have a positive mindset and outlook. Writing down actual timelines and goals to work towards is much better than saying to yourself, I want to get better. For example, I can see myself achieving this, or I can see myself riding my bicycle again, or I can see myself after the injury. Other methods which include brain stimulation, which ultimately promote blood flow and reduce inflammation. In addition to improving mood and psyche, are playing games that require thinking, both music, listening to music, reading, socializing with friends and family, engaging in stimulating conversations. Start to pick up an old hobby or a new hobby, gardening for example, cooking. Sports are also great for the overall mind and body connection. And the two suggestions that I like the most were serving others, providing a value to others. In turn, that will give you a sense of value. And finally, exercise. Exercise helps keep both your mind and body strong. Those are all suggestions for someone following a or traumatic brain injury. Last page. Another powerful lesson Dr. Komer discusses is the power of practicing forgiveness. It's quite often that those who have suffered a brain injury will generally hold blame and resentment towards either the incident or a person or persons involved. Dr. Komer writes, blame leads to unresolved pain and bitterness. It will rob you of peace and even your health. In a brain injury, the scars are not just physical, but psychological, emotional, and spiritual. In the last few chapters, Dr. Komer discusses the importance of overall health and prevention of other diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, and brain degeneration. The common theme among the above chronic degenerative diseases are, again, combination of inflammation, reduced blood flow, and in other cases, accumulation of toxic substances. Brain health, for example, or lack of brain health, has been linked to Alzheimer's, dementia. He writes, plaques from beta amyloid tend to build up in the brain, preventing the cell communication required for the brain to operate, which in turn leads to degeneration of cells. This is also linked to an immune response, which then causes an excess of inflammation. Dr. Komer then made a powerful connection linking the proper hormones. So he notes that women who experience menopause have a 30% reduction of blood flow to the brain. When estrogen, progesterone, and other hormones are restored, so does the blood supply to the brain. In men, the same principles exist with the reduction of testosterone. Testosterone is a very powerful vasodilator, and it also provides anti-inflammatory properties. By correcting the hormones, we can achieve better blood flow to the brain. Finally, Dr. Komer gives mention to his team, a powerhouse of experts which complement his clinic and resources and offer patients a complete spectrum for treatments. Athletic therapists, optometrists, audiology, dentists, physiologists, chiropractors, along with himself and his wife. Dr. Komer seems to be, and I've never met him before, seems to be a brilliant, well, actually, no, he is a brilliant physician. Check this out. He's delivered over 13,000 babies. He's introduced many new forms of gynecologic techniques in the Ontario, including operative endoscope surgery, operative tubal surgery and reversal of sterilization, gynecologic laser surgery, diagnostic and operative histoscopy, and founded Bone Health Clinic during his research in osteoporosis. 20 plus years in hormonal interventional endocrinology, worked with over 6,000 men treating testosterone deficiency syndrome. In 2016, he was awarded the prestigious Physician Care Award, and finally, he's a sport enthusiast. And he was also a goalie, just like me. His wife, Joan, is a speaker, educator who's the CEO of Peak Performance Institute. Her background is in psychology and developed a seminar for women called Rose, where she empowers the lives of women. Rose was awarded the Women of the Year award in 1999 for her work with women. So the reason why I read this book and wanted to summarize it is because two people most recently have that I know of that are close to me experienced concussions. So I wanted to pick this book and read it and share this. I'm going to put this on my YouTube. It's a great read. If you're able to implement all those things that you have that you've experienced, you're certainly going to put yourself in a better position to achieve brain healing. So Dr. Komer has a clinic here in Burlington. He works with a lot of men. I definitely look forward to meeting him one day. I'm sure we'll cross paths. But that being said, this is a really good book. I truly enjoyed it. I literally had tears coming down my face when I read about the part where he lost his daughter, and you can tell that he's passionate. And I shouldn't have said appears to be. This guy definitely is absolutely brilliant. So many years of clinical experience in hospitals and working with women. It's fair to say he probably understands women more than he understands men, even though he's a man and he works with men. It's quite remarkable, the story and all of his achievements. So I was so thrilled to read this book. Great for anyone that's experienced a concussion or a brain injury. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. You definitely want to check this out.